Well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk today. I'm going to talk about the idea that we need to use brain health, brain science research, and community engagement and education in order to prevent and understand violence, and think of it as a disease that we can prevent, intervene, and cure. As you've seen, no surprise, all of the talks today address very sobering statistics. We have a problem in our country. We have an epidemic problem of violence. 1 in 5 of us in this room are going to be victimized violently this year. In the time that we're sitting in this room, 267 acts of violence are going to be committed. In the 2 hours that we're in here, 3 murders are going to take place. 18 rapes, and 9 people will die by suicide while we're sitting in here. These are very sobering statistics. And I come to you with a unique perspective. I come to you as the face of one of those statistics. My wife, Jennifer, and I lost at that time our only daughter, 6-year-old beautiful little girl named Avielle, when she was murdered with 19 of her friends and classmates and 6 of her educators in the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting in Newtown, Connecticut on December 14th of 2012. So we are this statistic. I also come to you with a unique perspective. I'm a neuroscientist. I've worked in the academic and drug discovery fields for over 2.5 decades, and I know what we can do when we put our energy and focus into finding ways to prevent, intervene, and cure diseases and alleviate suffering. This can be done, but it takes very concentrated effort, time, and money, as we talked about with Dr. Rodriguez. We recognize that we have these specialized organs, and the brain is just another organ, like the heart, the lung, the liver, the kidneys. It can be healthy and it can be unhealthy. Unfortunately, we know less about brain science than we do any other science. It's completely uncharted territory. We know more about the subatomic particle structures. We know more about the surface of Mars than we do what's between our ears here. And considering this is the organ we use to consider, it's really ironic how little we know about it. As a result of this invisible world, this black box that's our brain, we think of it in a very mystical and magical way. We have a lot of fear and misunderstanding associated with it. And when we ask, yes, here's my meat, here's my body, but where am I? Well, I'm out here somewhere. But the fact is, we know in a scientific sense that this special organ is the seat of the source of our memories, our feelings, and our behaviors. If the behaviors are abnormal, there's an abnormality of chemistry and structure. So this brings us to the problem when the behaviors are violent and it's a big elephant in the room, and I recognize in this context elephants mean something else. This is just to illustrate my point. We have a big problem that we're not seeing that's standing right next to us. On the left side of this problem of violence, we say violence, it's all about access to firearms. On the right side, we say, no, it's not firearms, it's mental illness. Guns don't kill people, people kill people. The retort to that, people with mental illnesses are more likely to be victims of violence than to be perpetrators. Well, as with all of these divisive debates, there's a big gray area in between them. If we look at that umbrella that covers mental illnesses, it's so broad, it's almost meaningless. There's so many different varieties of diseases that fit under it. We all would agree that somebody that takes their own life or harms themselves, somebody that goes into a school and kills a bunch of 6-year-olds, somebody that shoots somebody else on a street corner or abuses their wife or their siblings, has a problem. It's abnormal behavior. When we get to this guns don't kill people, people kill people sentiment, we need to recognize we're not more violent than other developed countries. We're more lethal. And that's clearly because the weapon, the tool, is more effective. The quote needs to say, guns don't kill people, people kill people with guns. We need to make the invisible world of mental a visible one. We need to give people diagnoses of diseases not based on symptoms and syndromes, and we don't want to label the individual as their disease. We need to give them hope, not make it a matter of character or a broken child and call their child a disease. We need to make this visible. We need to look underneath the hood here, what's in that black box, build bridges between the biochemical, structural sciences of neuroscience and the behavioral sciences that we study in the public health and medical fields. This will give people hope because the barrier is now we're ashamed, we're afraid, we have stigma, we have discrimination based on diagnoses of the brain that causes people to not get help for themselves or advocate for their loved ones. We need to eliminate that. We need people to recognize it's chemistry and structure that we're responsible for and not character. We can, while this is a black box, we don't necessarily know right now what's going on under the hood. We do know that there's a number of environmental risk factors that lead to an increased propensity to act violently. We talked about ACEs, that's a perfect example, access to firearms, toxins, and we also know that there's protective factors that when they go into this black box, we move away from violence and towards compassion, kindness, connection, resilience, community. And we need to recognize that being human requires us to live in large groups. We've evolved and specialized our brains for this purpose. And that the ultimate development of our brain, of our human species, is to adapt our environment to suit us. We don't play by the same old Darwinian rules. We have in our capacity the ability to shape our environment, and our brains are wired to adapt in response to that. They can change, and that the pinnacle of human evolution is to be humane as a result of that. We need to think of this as brain science. Think of it in terms of a public health approach, a medical approach, to prevent, intervene, and cure violence. So here we are at the base of Mount Improbable. Right? In the light sides of this mountain, those are the things that we know we know. We know the brain is the seat of our memories, feelings, and behaviors. We know that we need to make this invisible and fearful world of mental a visible, tangible one based on real pathologies, chemical structure, and chemistry, and build these bridges in the neuroscience and behavioral science fields. We also know that there's risk factors and protective factors, and we need to engage communities and educate ourselves and each other on what these protective factors are and risk factors are so that we can work together to intervene, prevent, and cure. And we know that that's what we are made to do. That's what we need to work on, and we're responsible for it. There's a great quote, few are guilty, but all are responsible. We're all responsible for this health. In the dark sides of this mountain probable, we have what we know we don't know. These are the bridges that we need to build. These are the chemical and physical structural changes that take place in response to violent exposure, in response to adversity, the changes that can take place when we're mindful, when we're peaceful and practiced. But we also need to recognize that this isn't just Mount Improbable. This is the tip of the iceberg. And we need to dip our heads underneath that water and look at what we don't know. And this is going to take a lot of sleeves being rolled up, tough conversations that we need to have, and it's going to take a lot of money and engagement. And we need people to demand that takes place. And I guess we'll save questions for the panel at the end.